Lula's speech to the UN. It's being dubbed over by a translator, so we won't get to hear Lula's beautiful dulcet tones. But a lot of what Lula says is so important. I love that he didn't shy away from any of this stuff. And I'm just going to play some of the better clips.
$2.4 trillion, over $90 billion have been mobilized with nuclear arsenals. These resources could have been used to finance the fight against hunger and climate change. What we are seeing...
I appreciate saying that type of thing, even though I also understand that the U.S. can print whatever amount of money they want. So whenever you say we don't have money for things like to fight climate change or for hunger, etc., the truth is the U.S. has all the money that they want. But I still think it's important. I don't want to abandon the idea that that's our tax dollars going to kill children. I think that's an important way that people care about these things is where are my tax dollars going? Oh, they're going to bomb children when they could be going to healthcare. It's still often an important way to talk about it, I think. But also, he's not American, so it's a little different.
Is an increase in military capabilities. The use of force not supported by international law is becoming the rule. We are witnessing two simultaneous conflicts with the potential to become widespread conflagrations. In Ukraine, with regret, we are seeing the war extending without any prospect of peace. Brazil has firmly condemned the invasion of the Ukrainian territory. It is already clear that neither side will be able to achieve all their objectives through military means. The use of increasingly destructive weapons brings to the mind the darkest days of their sterile Cold War confrontation.
He spoke about how it's way past time to sit down and have peace in that war. And as I mentioned earlier, the U.S. and Britain have stopped peace at every turn. They control Ukraine. So if they were to tell Ukraine you have to sit down and hash out a peace agreement right now, it would be done. But of course, the U.S. doesn't want that. The U.S. wants to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. Does anyone actually believe that U.S. politicians give a shit about Ukrainian humans? Like for a second? No, zero. So this whole we have to help Ukrainians is just amazing horseshit.
To be established and for the hostilities to end. In Gaza and the West Bank, we are witnessing one of the greatest humanitarian crises in recent history, which is now spreading dangerously to Lebanon. What began as a terrorist action by fanatics against innocent Israeli civilians has become a collective punishment for the entire Palestinian people. There have been over 40,000 fatal victims, mostly women and children. The right to defense has become the right to vengeance.
I like that expression. The right to defense has become the right to vengeance. It was nice of him, though, to not call it a genocide. That was sweet of him. I guess he felt that too. There's certain buzzwords that get the UN up in arms, and he didn't want to use that one. But of course, you can't say 40,000, mostly women and children, dead and not understand it's a genocide.
Which prevents an agreement for the release of hostages and postpones the ceasefire.
I'll throw this question to you guys. Can you imagine any of these, like this speech being given by a U.S. politician, strongly? I'm not saying a little piece here or there, but I'm saying literally covering all of these aspects. I don't know if there's a U.S. politician on the national stage that's brave enough to say these things. All of them. Obviously, Rashida Tlaib is good on Palestine, but...
Deplanetize our life together. We're doomed to climate change.
And by the way, when I say politician, I'm talking about politicians in office, not Jill Stein, Cornel West, Claudia de la Cruz. There's plenty that are not in office that are excellent on some of these issues, or all of these issues, maybe.
Interdependence. The planet is no longer waiting to demand payment for the next generation and is fed up with unfulfilled climate agreements. It's tired of neglected carbon reduction targets and financial aid to poor countries that does not arrive. Denialism succumbs to evidence of global warming. 2024 is on track to be the hottest year in modern history. Hurricanes in the Caribbean, typhoons in Asia, droughts and floods in Africa, torrential rains in Europe leave a trail of death and destruction. Fighting against those who profit with environmental degradation. We will not tolerate environmental crimes, illegal mining, and organized crime. We reduced the deforestation of the Amazon by 50% in the last year, and we will eradicate it by 2030. It is no longer acceptable to think about solutions for tropical forests without listening to the indigenous peoples, traditional communities, and all those that live in them.
I was just kind of watching it in terms of comparing it to U.S. politicians in office. And when was the last time you heard any of them talk about deforestation in the United States? Granted, the United States does not have an Amazon, but there are plenty of forests in the United States, and they're all getting fucking chopped down. And I can't even recall the last politician in office I've heard mention deforestation in the United States. Eleanor Goldfield did an excellent short documentary called To the Trees, and I think it's at tothetreesfilm.com maybe. It was about deforestation of the redwoods in California, and often not just with redwoods, but with a lot of trees. I didn't realize this. When you're driving along the highway, especially highways in more scenic areas, you'll often see a lot of trees because the companies that do the deforestation have realized that people get upset when you cut the trees by the road because they drive by and they go, oh my God. So if you actually look on a map, they'll leave the forest for like a half mile or a quarter mile around the highway, and then they'll just cut all the rest down. So that when you're driving down that highway, you think the forest is still there. And in fact, they've gutted the rest of it. It's absolutely horrific. And I didn't realize that was like a standard practice. And, and I was just excited to see him mention talk about climate change, talk about climate crisis, because so few do, even as we have the hottest year ever recorded. And last year was the hottest year ever recorded. And the year before that was the hottest year ever recorded. The year before that was the hottest year ever recorded. It's funny how each year ends up being the hottest year ever recorded. It's so crazy. So crazy how that works. I think it's in artificial intelligence, which is an important point that I think not a lot of people people who aren't in the fields of artificial intelligence don't seem to be grasping.
The domestic economy. In the area of artificial intelligence, we are experiencing the consolidation of the asymmetries that lead to a true knowledge oligopoly. The unprecedented concentration in the hands of a small number of people and companies based in an even smaller number of countries is advancing. We are interested in an emancipatory artificial intelligence, which also has the face of the global south and which strengthens cultural diversity, that respects human rights, protects personal data, and promotes information integrity.
Key points there about the asymmetry. We are increasingly getting to this asymmetric world where the rich and in just a handful of countries are going to, and already, but will even more so soon, have just unbelievable technological abilities. The ability to do just about anything and map out just about anything with artificial intelligence, while so much of the world is not just operating without that, but without fucking smartphones. I mean, without so much technology. And so that asymmetry allows for abuse, extraction, oppression, and that it's just, we're seeing it just run away. I mean, corporations with strong artificial intelligence that keeps growing are just going to be able to obliterate anyone that's being left behind. And rather than this stuff getting to the people, it's generally being collected in a tiny number of evil little hands that go like this a lot. That's where it's going. That's where it goes. It really is amazing to me that some people do not understand the impact artificial intelligence has and will continue to have. People just go, oh, I asked it to write a book report for me and it wasn't very good, so it can't do anything. And you're like, that's funny because right now AI is being used by some company to decide that they want to, buy your area of town out from under you and bulldoze your house. Like, it's just right now AI is being used to decide that your uncle doesn't get out of prison because there's an AI program that's racist that has decided he's a greater risk than the other guy in the cell next to him. You don't even know the inputs that are making the AI decisions. And here we are going, oh, well, I don't know. I guess we're just stumbling into this awful dystopian future. We're just like, well, let's see what happens. Now, that being said, AI could be used for amazing things. You could create an awesome AI program that literally solves poverty. Like, you could have awesome AI programs that for the least amount of money tell us how to feed the largest number of people or solve for clean water. If you actually create them correctly and use them correctly and then do what they've mapped out, they could be amazing. Just such a massive benefit to humanity. And that is not where we're headed. That is not where we're going right now at all. And so, it's good to see Lula bringing up artificial intelligence and the asymmetry of it.
Countries are increasing the scope of this scourge. But hunger is not just the result of external factors. It arises above all from political choices. Today, the world produces more than enough food to eradicate it. What is missing is for conditions to be created so that food may be affordable. This is my government's most urgent commitment. End hunger in Brazil, as we did in 2014. In 23 alone, we lifted 24,400,000 people out of a condition of severe food insecurity.
Anyway, I wanted to play that clip because he talks about the fact that we absolutely have the resources to feed everyone. And that is true. We technically live in a post-scarcity world. We're just not using it. We're not doing it correctly. Instead, we've got a capitalist system that allows for and actually perpetrates the situation for half the world's population to live on $2 a day and not know where they're going to get their food from. But if it were done right, if it were allotted correctly, we live in a post-scarcity world where everyone could have food, without a doubt.